June 30th, 2026. The Persian Gulf has once again become the world's most dangerous flashpoint. Following 72 hours of intense kinetic exchanges, U.S. Central Command has raised the stakes, striking 10 critical Iranian military installations, including 2 newly constructed maritime interdiction outposts. Washington has signaled that the era of strategic patience is officially over. In response, Tehran's rhetoric has reached a fever pitch. State radio broadcasts from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, promise swift and asymmetric retribution, declaring that any further violation of their sovereignty will trigger an unprecedented retaliation. But behind the propaganda lies a stark tactical reality. U.S. Central Command recently declassified satellite and operational imagery confirming the arrival of a massive naval hammer, the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, or MEU. Staged aboard the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli and flanked by a formidable strike group, this self-contained combat force represents the ultimate tool of American power projection. To understand what happens next, we must look beyond the political grandstanding and analyze the cold, hard numbers of modern amphibious and aerial warfare. The United States is not just preparing to defend shipping lanes, it is positioning the exact chess pieces required to dismantle Iran's coastal denial capabilities. An amphibious operation in the heavily defended waters of the Persian Gulf is one of the most complex maneuvers a military can undertake. Iran's southern coastline is structured around an anti-access/area denial or A2/AD strategy. It bristles with mobile radar installations, anti-ship cruise missile batteries, and hidden drone storage facilities, many of which are deeply buried in hardened underground bunkers. To crack this defensive shell, the Pentagon utilizes a strictly sequenced multi-layered strike package. The outer layer relies on the suppression of enemy air defenses known as SEAD. F-16 Fighting Falcons, specifically the Wild Weasel variants from the 20th Fighter Wing, carry AGM-88 HARM missiles designed to home in on Iranian radar signatures. Operating alongside them are F-15E Strike Eagles, acting as heavy bombers to neutralize fixed missile launchers and command hubs. Integrating seamlessly into this network is the crown jewel of the Marine Corps' aviation element, the 5th-generation F-35B Lightning II. Unlike standard carrier-based aircraft, the F-35B possesses short takeoff and vertical landing capabilities. This allows it to operate from the constrained deck of the USS Tripoli or from rudimentary, hastily cleared dirt strips on nearby Allied territory. However, kinetic destruction is useless without intelligence. The unglamorous backbone of this entire campaign is ISR intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. High-altitude MQ-9 Reaper drones and ship-launched tactical unmanned aerial vehicles scan the Iranian coastline around the clock. This hyper-vigilant surveillance network explains why, when the IRGC attempted to build 2 hidden missile outposts, American intelligence located and logged them before the concrete foundations had even fully cured. If conflict escalates to a full-scale regional war, military planners point to one definitive center of gravity: Karg Island. Situated just 16 miles off the northwestern coast of Iran, this small island is the financial heart of the Islamic Republic. Approximately 90% of Iran's crude oil exports pass through the massive terminal facilities on Karg. If Karg Island falls or is successfully blockaded, the Iranian regime faces immediate economic collapse. Rumors regarding operational plans to seize or neutralize the island have circulated within defense circles. But what does a military assault on Karg Island actually look like? Geospatial analysis reveals a highly fortified, yet deeply vulnerable landscape. Iran has integrated heavily armed defensive positions across the island to counter American air and sea superiority. Air defense is anchored by assets like the Mesbah-1, a multi-barrel short-range anti-aircraft gun system designed to track and destroy incoming low-flying cruise missiles and helicopters. Mobile surface-to-air missile launchers and early warning radar arrays are positioned on the higher ridges of the island to monitor the Gulf, yet Karg Island suffers from structural, geographic isolation. It is a fixed target surrounded by deep water, making it a prime objective for the 31st MEU's specialized assets. The primary threats to shipping in the Strait of Hormuz are the IRGC Navy's fast attack craft, small, heavily armed speedboats designed for swarm tactics. Satellite imagery shows these fast attack craft docked at militarized piers alongside civilian vessels utilizing human shielding to deter American bombardment. In a scenario involving the 31st MEU, these docks would be neutralized within the opening minutes. AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters operating from amphibious decks would utilize Hellfire missiles and APKWS laser-guided rockets to shred the swarm boats before they could even clear the harbor. Concurrently, heavy infrastructure, such as oil storage tanks, loading docks, and the primary pumping stations would be targeted by F-35B, utilizing satellite-guided joint direct attack munitions. While holding and occupying an island just 16 miles from the Iranian mainland presents immense logistical risks, neutralizing its economic utility requires only a matter of hours. Further south, guarding the narrowest bottleneck of the Strait of Hormuz, lies Bandar Abbas. This is the headquarters of the IRGC Navy and the primary staging ground for Iran's asymmetric maritime doctrine. Unlike Karg Island, which is purely an export hub, Bandar Abbas is a heavily fortified naval bastion. An analysis of the base reveals extensive military infrastructure. The western sector houses a specialized hovercraft base featuring British-designed BH-7 and Wellington-class hovercraft. These vessels allow the IRGC to rapidly deploy sea mines and transport naval special forces across shallow mudflats where conventional warships cannot venture. Adjacent to the hovercraft facility are hardened helicopter hangars housing Me-17 transport helicopters and armed Sea Kings capable of conducting airborne vertical envelopment attacks on commercial tankers. Protecting this vital naval base is a dense network of air defenses. Strategically positioned on the hills overlooking Bandar Abbas are advanced surface-to-air missile batteries, including the indigenous Corded 15 and the Russian-supplied S-300 system. These sites are supported by heavily fortified underground bunker systems designed to shelter personnel and reload missiles during an intense American opening strike. For U.S. military planners, targeting Bandar Abbas requires a coordinated joint force approach. To neutralize the IRGC's ability to close the strait, the 31st MEU would likely deploy its maritime raid force. This elite component is composed of Force Reconnaissance Marines, the tip of the spear. To appreciate the sheer leverage the United States possesses in this theater, one must understand the unique organizational doctrine of the Marine Expeditionary Unit. The MEU is not simply a collection of soldiers, it is a self-contained air-ground task force capable of independent operations anywhere on Earth within hours of receiving an executive order. It requires no host nation permissions, no access to foreign airfields, and no logistical support from civilian networks. And standard MEU operates with approximately 2,200 Marines and sailors structured into 4 highly integrated elements. First is the ground combat element, built around a reinforced infantry battalion. These are the shock troops trained for amphibious assaults, urban warfare, and defensive operations. Second is the aviation combat element, a versatile air wing flying F-35B stealth fighters, MV-22, B Osprey tilt-rotor transport, CH-53, E Super Stallion heavy lifters, and AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters. Third is the logistics combat element, a specialized battalion that allows the entire MEU to remain completely self-sufficient for up to 15 days in high-intensity combat with zero external resupply. Finally, the command element serves as the operational brain, coordinating intelligence, electronic warfare, and cyber operations seamlessly with global combatant command. This entire force rides on an amphibious-ready group led by large-deck amphibious assault ships like the USS Tripoli. These vessels function essentially as pocket aircraft carriers, but feature a unique addition, a well deck at the stern. This allows the ship to flood its lower compartments and launch heavy hovercraft, landing craft, air-cushioned carrying M1A1 Abrams tanks, or light armored vehicles directly onto a hostile beachhead. Therefore, the deployment of the 31st MEU is the ultimate piece of leverage. By positioning this amphibious hammer directly opposite Karg Island and Bandar Abbas, Washington, is sending an unmistakable message to the mullahs in Tehran. Any attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz or disrupt the 20% of global energy that flows through it will result in the immediate and permanent destruction of their sole economic lifeline. However, a full-scale invasion of Iran remains a highly improbable scenario. The cost in blood treasure and global economic stability would be catastrophic. Instead, military analysts point to a more sophisticated long-term deterrence strategy. Rather than executing a risky landing on Iranian soil, the United States can choose to establish a permanent forward-deployed presence on the Omani side of the Strait of Hormuz. By basing Marines' advanced low-footprint reconnaissance drones and mobile anti-ship batteries within Allied Omani territory, Washington can effectively lock down the strait from a position of absolute safety. The IRGC Navy is currently operating at a distinct disadvantage. Recent precision strikes have reportedly eliminated high-ranking architects of their fast attack doctrine, including key naval commanders tied to the strait closure plans. Iran is attempting to play a high-stakes game of geopolitical chess, but their board is missing its most critical pieces. By deploying the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit to the Persian Gulf, the United States has shown that it is no longer playing by the rules of diplomacy. They have brought an industrial military machine to a diplomatic negotiation. The lines have been drawn in the sands of the Persian Gulf. Whether Tehran chooses to de-escalate or test the resolve of the floating fire department off their coast remains to be seen. But one reality is certain: the margin for error has vanished. Thank you for watching. For more in-depth breakdowns of global conflicts and military doctrine, ensure you are subscribed to the channel. Until next time.